Hi, this is Randy Rolfe from the Institute for Creative Solutions, sharing foundational concepts about vibrant health through natural living. And I want to talk some more about organic foods because sometimes I get a question like, you don't want any of the pesticides and herbicides and artificial fertilizers and antibiotics in the animals and that kind of thing. But what's wrong with them, because we've been using them for almost 50 years. And so when I get those kinds of questions, I think I should give more detail about why these things are dangerous and we are seeing the results of their toxic effects. So I want to talk about three main things that come with food that is not organic. First of all, the pesticides are mostly endocrine disruptors, and we're finding more and more danger with these endocrine disruptor chemicals. And that is because our whole bodies are managed not only by our nerves fed by our brain, but also a very delicate balance with our hormones. And we have at least almost a dozen different glands that produce hormones that are called endocrines because they go all over the body and have multiple effects. So our moods, our digestion, our immune system, and our gender differentiations and our development and our cleansing systems all rely on hormones. Insulin, that is so involved in diabetes, is hormone. The ghrelins and lectins that control our appetite come from hormones. And our pancreas and our thyroid, so many people have thyroid imbalances that put on weight. And the pituitary, that's called the master gland, and the hypothalamus produces some hormones as well to connect with the nervous system. So all of these things are intricately balanced for a healthy body. But if we take things that disrupt those particular hormones from being built, then it can affect almost anything. And we're finding more and more of those kinds of results. There's been recent studies showing that the endocrine disruptors are actually changing the way our satiety hormone talks to us. So we just don't feel full when we should, because the message isn't getting to the brain that we've had enough to maintain our energy level in all our cells. So I'll just mention that my dad was an infertility specialist, and he said that the endocrine disruptors were in the pesticides on the farms because that's the way they killed the bugs, by destroying their ability to reproduce. So this is essentially a part of the pesticide industry, is to kill the bugs by preventing them from reproducing. And my father said this will affect humans that are constantly eating these pesticides. It's going to affect our hormones as well. And he said infertility would definitely increase because we're eating pesticides. And that has happened since he said that back in the 70s. And so that's just one area. You want to avoid foods that have pesticides. And of course, I always say, well, if it's natural, why not eat the way we did 100 years ago, where we didn't have all these artificial man-made chemicals? And that just makes common sense to me. But we do know that these things are really causing trouble already for us. And we have generations that have grown up with these chemicals, and it really is affecting them. They're overweight, and they have many, many other problems, diabetes, and heart problems even, and infertility in young adults. So those things are showing up. Now, a second thing is all the artificial additives in our foods, the colorings, they affect our nervous system, the other major control system of the body. And back in the 70s and 80s, there was what we call the Feingold diet, because Dr. Feingold identified that these colorings, mostly in children's cereals in those days, were causing hyperactivity in children. And we called it hyperactivity back then. Now it's ADHD and ADD. And but it's the same thing. It's causing neurological problems for kids. And we're still got those colorings and everything, unless you buy organic foods that haven't had those things added. And then the third thing I want to talk about, and of course the problem with the hyperactivity is still on the uprise, and many kids are on drugs, and that gets them started into these mood altering drugs when they're kids. And then why are we surprised when they're attracted to mood altering drugs to solve their problems as grown-ups? So it's a constant problem. And the other thing is, organic animals are raised without antibiotics. And we know from so many studies that we have developed resistance to antibiotics in our own microbiomes in our bodies, because we've been taking antibiotics so long that we've actually done some microgenetic engineering, forcing bugs to develop a resistance to these antibiotics, because they're always there. So say it kills 85% of them, but the 15%, they have a genetic superiority where they can reproduce. So we're actually breeding the bacteria to be antibiotic resistant. So when people do get a bad infection, then our antibiotics aren't working anymore. So this is a disaster. The 20th century was the century of medical intervention, and antibiotics could kill almost any bug. We're out of that now. We can't. We're getting these major bacterial and infections that we can't solve. And because the antibiotics, we have to keep trying to come up with stronger ones, but those are going to be more dangerous. And if they're not natural, like penicillin or nystatin against the yeasts, then we actually are taking in, again, alien chemicals that the body needs to process and detoxify and eliminate. And that puts more stress on the liver and the kidneys and the skin and the lungs to get rid of unwanted debris. So those are things why we want to buy organic. And I didn't even talk about genetically modified foods. I did mention that in my last talk about organics. So that's enough about it today. Thank you. I hope you'll buy organic. It's worth it. You will save on over-the-counter drugs and trips to the doctor if you just spend a little more buying your organics and using your dollar to vote for safer food.